They say that every 200th man on the planet carries the DNA of Genghis Khan. For 20 years, scientists were certain they knew his Y chromosome. But a new study published in 2025 has completely demolished that theory. It turns out we never actually knew Genghis Khan's real DNA. And the strangest part of this whole story is how we arrived at that conclusion 20 years ago. In 2003, a team of geneticists led by Chris Tyler Smith published a study that instantly became a sensation. They examined the Y chromosomes of 8,000 men from Asia, from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean, and they found something strange. The same rare haplotype kept appearing in 16 million men. 16 million. At the time, that was about 0.5% of the entire male population of Earth, 1 in 200. The scientists looked at a map showing where this haplotype occurred and gasped. The boundary of this DNA almost perfectly matched the borders of the Mongol Empire in the 13th century. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, northern China, Afghanistan, parts of Iran, Mongolia, everywhere, except for one small exception: the Hazara tribe in Pakistan, who consider themselves direct descendants of Mongol warriors. Among them, every third man carried this haplotype. The conclusion seemed obvious. This was the DNA of Genghis Khan, the great Khan who, according to chronicles, had hundreds of concubines, his sons each with hundreds more, grandsons, the same pattern. Over 8 centuries, the dynasty multiplied so rapidly that its trace was imprinted on the genome of half of Asia. Journalists ran with it, newspapers ran headlines. The accompanying image showed a stern Mongol with almond-shaped eyes with the caption, "Here's your ancestor, congratulations." And for nearly 20 years, this was accepted scientific truth. It was cited, family trees were built on it. In Mongolia, companies appeared that, for a fee, would test customers and solemnly inform them, yes, you carry the blood of Genghis Khan. Tourists flew halfway across the world to spit in a tube and feel like descendants of a conqueror. Business was booming, but there was one tiny problem that almost no one discussed openly. We never had any DNA from Genghis Khan himself. Not a single cell. Not a single strand of hair. The great Khan's tomb remains undiscovered to this day. It is one of the most carefully guarded secrets in history. Legend has it that he was buried secretly in an unmarked place, and the 40 warriors who knew the location were killed. Those who killed them were also killed. 1,000 horses were driven over the grave to erase all traces. The ground was leveled with the grass, and that was that. So we were talking about Genghis Khan's DNA without having any DNA from Genghis Khan. We were drawing conclusions based on indirect evidence. Geography, dates, haplotype density. It's like showing up at a crime scene, seeing fingerprints, and saying, well, it was probably the most famous person in the neighborhood. Logical? Logical. Proven? No. In 2025, a team of researchers from the Institute of Archaeology of Inner Mongolia, together with geneticists from Fudan University, did what should have been done long ago. They started digging. Not literally. Searching for the Khan's tomb is futile, but they began studying the DNA of known descendants, those whose relation to Genghis Khan is confirmed by written sources. And here's where it gets really interesting. Genghis Khan had 4 sons by his beloved wife Bert, Jochi, Chagatai, Ogadai, and Tului. Each founded his own branch. Each branch ruled vast territories for centuries. Their descendants are known by name, through chronicles and through tombs. China preserves the tombs of the Yuan dynasty emperors, descendants of Tului. In Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, descendants of Jochi. In Iran and Afghanistan, descendants of Hulagu. The scientists took samples from confirmed burials, remains of people whose lineage traces directly to the sons of Genghis Khan, and they compared those samples to the haplotype that had been considered the Khan's for 20 years. There was no match. None. The confirmed descendants of Genghis Khan carry a completely different Y chromosome. Not the one found in 16 million Asian men, a different one, rarer, more local. Wait. If 16 million men across Asia are not descendants of Genghis Khan, whose descendants are they? And here, scientists had to rethink almost everything they thought about the Mongol conquest. Because the haplotype once attributed to the Khan hasn't disappeared. It still exists. It's still distributed precisely along the map of the Mongol Empire. It's just that its carrier wasn't Genghis Khan, it was someone else. Someone who lived around the same time. Someone who had roughly the same number of descendants, meaning thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of direct heirs. Someone who traveled the same lands as the Mongol armies. Who could it have been? The researchers have a hypothesis, and it's so uncomfortable that it's being discussed quietly. The thing is, marching alongside Genghis Khan across the steppe were his generals. The famous four hounds, Jebe, Subutai, Kublai Noyan, and Gelmay, and the four horses, Boorchu, Mukali, Borakul, and Chilan. These men were not just warriors. Each had his own court, his own harem, his own army. Each, according to the customs of the time, had rights to the captives of conquered cities. And each, essentially, reproduced with no less intensity than the Khan himself. What if the 16 million men are descendants not of Genghis Khan, but of one of his generals? Or more likely, of several sons from a single clan that accompanied the Khan on all his campaigns. Such an assumption explains everything: the geography, the speed of spread, and why the haplotype appears precisely in the locations of military campaigns, rather than where the Khan's confirmed descendants ruled. In 2025, researchers went further. They compared this false Khan haplotype with the DNA of known Turkic and Mongol clans from the same period. And they found a match. Not 100%, but enough to suggest this is the haplotype of a minor clan, close to the Khan but not the Khan himself. This changes everything. It means that millions of people who proudly called themselves descendants of Genghis Khan are actually descendants of his comrades in arms, his generals, his cousins, his servants even. Anyone but him, and this raises the next even stranger question. What about the Khan's actual DNA, the one found in the tombs of his confirmed descendants? How many carriers does it have today? According to the Fudan team's calculations, about 800,000 people, mostly in Mongolia, the northern provinces of China, Buryatia, and parts of Kazakhstan. This is minuscule compared to 16 million. It's not 1 in 200, it's about 1 in 10,000 men on the planet. In other words, the real descendants of Genghis Khan are 20 times fewer than we thought. And now the scientists did what the whole work had been leading up to. They took this real Khan DNA, the one found in his confirmed descendants, and compared it to the DNA of other great conquerors in history: Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Attila, Timur,
Tamerlane,
Napoleon. Everyone whose remains or descendants have been at least partially preserved. Everyone who could be genetically tested in any way. No one expected the result. With Alexander the Great, and we do have DNA from his presumed relatives, from Macedonian tombs, no match. Logical, you might say. They lived at opposite ends of the world in different eras. But that's not the point. The point is that geneticists had a hypothesis. Many historians believe that Mongol tribes might have had Scythian, and through them, Indo-European roots. So some connection between the Western and Eastern conquerors might have existed. It didn't. Genghis Khan's genes are purely East Asian, North Asian, with a small admixture of a haplogroup found among Buryats and Tungus.
with Timur Tamerlane. His tomb was opened in 1941 and samples were preserved. There was a partial match.
Timur was from the Barlas tribe, Mongol by origin, and he and Genghis Khan did share common ancestors, but not close ancestors, somewhere around 20 to 25 generations before Genghis Khan. So Timur could call himself his heir in a political sense, but genetically, he was a third cousin many times removed. With Attila, no matches at all. This, by the way, puts an end to the old theory that Huns and Mongols are the same people. The Huns were further west, and their genetic signature is more Turkic than Mongol. But here's where things get truly interesting. The scientists expanded the sample. They included all known military leaders of Central Asia and Eastern Europe from the past 2,000 years, and they found an unexpected connection. The real DNA of Genghis Khan, the local, rare Northern Mongolian one, matches the DNA of a very unexpected group of people. It matches the DNA of early medieval North Korean aristocrats. More precisely, the DNA of the rulers of the state of Bohai, which existed from the 7th to the 10th century in what is now Manchuria and North Korea. These were Tungusic Manchurian tribes related to the ancestors of the Mongols, and their genetic signature is almost identical to the Khans. This means that Genghis Khan was probably not a purebred Mongol in the sense we imagine. He had Tungusic Manchurian ancestors in his lineage, the same ones who would later give the world the Qing dynasty. So, paradoxically, the Manchu emperors who ruled China from the 17th to the 20th century were genetically closer to Genghis Khan than half the population of modern Mongolia. This idea is so disruptive that it's still being debated at conferences. It turns out that the entire history of East Asia is the history of one large genetic melting pot that we have stubbornly divided into separate peoples. Mongols, Manchus, Tungus, Koreans. At the DNA level, they are often closer to each other than to their own myths of origin. And here the story takes a final turn that is deeply unsettling. Because if there are only 800,000 true descendants of Genghis Khan in the world, and only a few tens of thousands in Mongolia, then this lineage may disappear. According to geneticists' calculations, at current rates, it will halve again over the next 100 years. Simply because the carriers of this Y chromosome are elderly men in remote areas who have fewer children than city dwellers. Genghis Khan, the man whose name is associated with the most massive proliferation in human history, will leave behind fewer direct male line descendants than an average peasant from a European village. This is not a mistake. This is what the math shows. And one more detail that personally stunned me the most. When the scientists compared the DNA of confirmed Genghis Khan descendants with the modern population of Mongolia, it turned out that more than half of all Mongols actually have no relation to the Great Khan whatsoever. Not close, not distant, they are descendants of those very tribes that Genghis Khan conquered, the Taikyuts, Tatars, Merkits, Naimans. Those whose men were slaughtered in wars, and whose women were taken captive and became the mothers of new generations. So a modern Mongolian who proudly claims to be a descendant of the Khan's warriors is more likely to be a descendant of those whom those warriors killed. History is always more complex than myth. And today, genetics is doing to history what archaeology once did to biblical tales. It doesn't disprove the legend. It simply shows that beneath the legend lies another story, less heroic, more human, and often far more interesting. What does all this mean for us? For those living today who never carried a saber? I think it means this: we are used to thinking that great people leave behind a great legacy, that an emperor rules forever through his descendants, that a conqueror multiplies into the millions. But in reality, genes are much trickier. They don't select the strongest. They select the most adaptable. Not those who have the most children at one moment, but those whose great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren manage to survive, stay in safe places, avoid the next purge, escape the plague, survive the fire. Real genetic immortality is not strength, it's luck and patience. And one more thing. If 16 million Asian men are not descendants of Genghis Khan, but descendants of someone whose name we don't even know, then each of us has someone like that in our family tree. Some unnamed, forgotten, unremarkable ancestor whose genes turned out to be stronger than those of all the emperors, khans, and kings around them. They left no monument. They are mentioned in no chronicles, but their DNA lives on today in millions of people across the planet. That, if you think about it, is far more beautiful than any legend of a conqueror. If this story resonated with you, hit like. It's the only way the algorithm understands that this is the kind of story worth telling. Subscribe, because in the next episode, we'll be breaking down what geneticists recently found in the hair from Tutankhamun's tomb. And spoiler, it's not at all what we were taught in school. And in the comments, write this: if you could choose whose real DNA you'd want to see first. Genghis Khan, Cleopatra, Jesus, Shakespeare. I'll pick the most interesting answer and make a separate video about it. And finally, every time you hear the phrase "scientists have proven," ask yourself one simple question. Did they prove it, or did they just desperately want to believe it? For 20 years, half the world was convinced they carried the blood of Genghis Khan in their veins. And it wasn't until 2025 that someone finally checked. Sometimes the loudest truths turn out to be the quietest mistakes.